Focus, decay, separation, response. What do they all mean? Or what do they mean to us? They may mean something completely different to you. This week on Alvarez TV, we're looking at buzzwords and terminology around the acoustic guitar sound. Mahogany, man.
Mahogany.
Drop down a little bit.
Well, so you're drop down
Full step.
a full step, and I'm in. Well,
Open.
I'm in open D, but I guess open G, but I'm down.
But
a
the
step
way they
as well.
respond to that lower tuning, it's really nice.
It's really nice.
Nice and warm.
Ha.
Hi guys.
Hi guys, how you doing?
How are you doing? What we're doing today, mate?
Well, mate, today we get a lot of questions, don't we? We get a lot of conversations in our comments about the kind of terminology that we use. So we thought we'd do a show and try and pull apart some of those ideas, some of the words that we use.
A glossary.
A little glossary.
Just to preface this a little bit, we haven't rehearsed this.
No.
We decided not to because there are guitar glossaries, terminologies, all this stuff written. And we decided to say, what does it mean to us? And it will mean something different to you. So we're not like saying this word means that.
Yeah.
Because even in our conversation just setting up today, some of the words meant different things to me than it did to you. And I think that's healthy conversation. And I think some people who are watching, maybe it means different things to them.
Yes.
Or they may disagree with us, which I think is also healthy.
Yeah.
Again, about acoustic guitar making, playing, whatever it is, there's lots of lovely debate. And I think, so we're not saying this word means that. Obviously some things are kind of agreed upon.
Yeah.
But certain words, like we talked about articulation today, when we were setting up, what it meant to me or what it meant to you, or compression. And we both had different kind
Well,
of...
this is the wonderful thing, isn't it, about about the English language. It's the kind of nuance of language, but also some of the, and even in musical or sound terms, we talk about things and they have a slightly different meaning, you know.
And also what that word means to somebody before, maybe that it meant something else before they applied it in the context of an acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
like compression.
Yeah.
You know, to an engineer or a sound engineer to a mechanical engineer to a guitar designer, it's different. So anyway, we're just going to dive in. Please, if you agree, disagree, have a different take, we'd love to hear it. So
Absolutely.
what's number one?
Number one, focus.
Focus, okay. So to me, focus, we often use that word with a mahogany guitar.
We do. We talk about mid-focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, focus is, I always think of the guitar as like the sound hole and what happens here and what's going on. So focus to me, when I say something has got a focus sound, is less spread. So like sonically, You know, if you had sound waves, we call that, there'd be less dynamics. There'd be, you know, a more narrower frequency, set of frequencies, rather than, say, something hugely broad like Sitka and Rosewood, where that's what focuses.
Which has lots of sparkly highs and lots of resonant lows.
See, more terminology.
Sparkles and resonance and all of these things that we use all the time. But we're right, and we're both playing mahogany guitars, and those very pleasing middle frequencies, that is very pronounced, isn't it?
But to me, it's a more limited frequency set.
Right.
That's what it is to me, anyway.
Okay. Next, scale. We talk about scale length, don't we?
Somebody asked us about that. It's dead easy. The scale length is the point between the saddle and the nut. Whatever that measurement is, that's the scale length of the guitar. The longer the scale, higher the tension. That one's set.
That's easy. Silking.
Silking.
Talk about silking.
Silking, especially in Sitka and other spruces. We'll get Sam to show this here somewhere. But basically, inside the wood structure, the cell structure, there is something called, medullary rays. Medullary rays, what's in wood, is part of the cell structure that runs perpendicular to the grain. And medulla is actually, I think it's something, in a medical term, is something like the inside of an organ. So medullary rays are the sort of inside structure of the cell of a piece of wood. When you cut the wood, when you quarter saw it, it's perpendicular to the grain, so you cut through that.
Yes.
And you're exposing that cellular structure that comes like silking, which is that lovely shimmer that you see in spruce or redwoods and stuff like that, and get cedars as well. But and the more silking, the better.
Yeah. Some of our tops have beautifully pronounced.
If you got silking all over your top, buy that guitar.
So what does resonance mean to you?
What does it mean to you?
I always think of things in terms of vibrations.
Yeah.
I always think of, and we're going to get into probably some things to do with overtones and fundamentals and stuff. But resonance is that feeling that I get when something, I guess when something resonates with you, it speaks to you. It
Correct.
kind of,
There's a bit of a double meaning here.
Yeah.
So resonate.
There's a bit of ambiguity, isn't there, with certain terms.
But I do think vibration straight away. The guitar is resonating, creating that sonorous sort of.
That's a nice word.
We haven't even got that on the board. Sonorous, So, and kind of deeper. You think of deeper sounds.
Yes.
When it resonates, and obviously, does it resonate with you? Does that? If a guitar resonates with you, buy that one as well.
So we get to a word next where a lot of people, actually some people have actually picked us up on this because it means something completely different to some people.
Okay.
Compression.
All right, you go first. You're a sound engineer.
Well, compression in sound is taking the loudest and the quietest sounds and sort of moving them into a smaller, compressing them here.
Yeah. So all of the sounds are in a narrower frequency
but
thing.
Compression in recorded music, everything is compressed. Compression is all over recorded music. It is
control, right?
It is the sound of modern music, But it's taking the loudest sounds and the quietest sounds and pushing them. And what you can do is you can bring up the quieter sounds more in line with the louder sounds. So
to me that makes sense from a guitar context, because like a parlor guitar or a smaller body guitar to me has more compression.
Yeah.
It has less air volume, but it's still, and again, my mind goes to the sound hole, like it's squeezing out.
Feeling what's being pushed out of that sound hole.
So it's like, it's a smaller set.
Yeah.
Everything's there, but it's almost tighter, I would use the word.
Ah,
and it releases from the sound box in a more perfectly formed but smaller package.
But we are kind of talking about the same thing.
Correct.
When people think about something to do with file compression, they think of something being degraded.
Squash.
Sam and I were talking about this before. For example, if you take something from a large movie file and degrade it down to an MPEG,
you squash it, right?
You squash it, you lose some of the picture. We're not talking about that. That's a different kind of.
But similar. I think what a big body does to a small body. We're probably getting off on a tangent, but it's similar to that.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Well, reverberation is something to me, but it's maybe something different to you.
Well, reverb is that, but again, reverberation, I feel, is movement, vibration that creates that sound. So if a guitar reverberates, I feel as though it's alive,
Yes.
resonant to me.
So reverberation in terms of sound is a sound source moving against another source and coming back to you. So when you're in a large space,
Reverb.
yeah, reverb, exactly. So if you're in a church, you know, and it's a very, very large space, when you hear your voice coming back from that back wall, and it takes time for it to go and back again, and that creates that kind of what some people say is echo.
So what do you think of it in context of an acoustic guitar?
The way that the air is moving inside the box and creating overtones.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's next?
Something you talk about, and somebody picked us up on this, and it'd be good to clarify this actually. What does headroom mean to you?
To me personally, headroom is volume. But I was in a conversation with somebody a few weeks ago, and they said, we were talking about the difference between Adirondack and Sitka, and they said to them headroom was the ability to hear more clear trebles, like it was more high end. To me, that it didn't mean that. To me, it means like if a guitar has more headroom, you can dig in, it responds and keeps responding to a higher volume. Say, I use something like Sitka, which when you play harder, it doesn't respond like Sitka. Sorry, Cedar doesn't respond like Sitka. Like Cedar is quite, let's use the word quiet, compared to Sitka. That's what headroom is to me, like different woods have the ability to produce more volume. I might be wrong.
That's interesting.
What do you think it is?
In the sound world, we use headroom as a kind of the ability to have a bit of space at the top end of the of the audio mix. For example, if I was going to master something, I would mix it and I would leave a certain amount of space at the top of that mix so I could make it louder without it distorting.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. And people talk about acoustic guitars distorting, and I think when you has more headroom, it doesn't. I think that's what I should say. So it has the ability to be loud and clear. I think it's my.
I think it's on the same line. I think somebody picked us up on the word headroom. They thought that maybe it was incorrectly used, but it's not. It's just a descriptor that you use to sort of articulate. Oh, here's a good segue. Articulation.
If a guitar is articulate to me, I think it speaks clearly. When I say speak clearly, I mean that when you have open strings and fretted notes, you can hear everything. So it communicates the way you want it to communicate. So if a guitar is articulate, it's well voiced.
Right.
That's what it means to me.
That's interesting.
What does it mean to you?
Because an articulation if you were to say somebody had articulated their point, then you would say that they'd conveyed their message, right?
Similar,
right?
Really.
But articulation in music, in terms of that's how a note is attacked, whether it's soft or loud, whether it's plucked or whether it's bowed,
Still communication.
Yeah.
Art, music is communication, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't reach you, you're not sort of into it. So I think an articulate guitar to me, it speaks the way you want it to. So if you're fretting, shaping a chord, digging in, it's a little bit in the response kind of group of terms around a guitar. That's what I think anyway.
Presence.
I know like you have presence on electric guitars and usually it alters the trebles, right, doesn't it?
Yes.
Presence for me doesn't mean that. And I know for some people it means like it's to do with the clarity of the upper register. Presence to me is like when a guitar is present. So you've got volume, but volume is different. Like presence is you actually feel it in the room, and it's like everything is there. Again, I know there's words like other things. I'm thinking clarity and separation, but presence to me is it's a very real, tangible sound, and I can almost feel it. I know that's a bit different.
No, it's similar. It's the same sort of thing. I guess in terms of recording, we talk about mics having presence, Somebody may correct me on this because I might have this slightly wrong, but I think around about 4K to 6K kilohertz is about the range of presence. And it's got something to do with, if I remember this correctly from my college days, I think it's something to do with, it's an anthropological thing. It's how humans have developed, anthropological. It's how humans have developed kind of, our speech is in that range, Like mobile phones are optimized in that frequency so we hear, it's that kind of upper.
Yeah.
So presence for me is when you start to dial in If you take away those frequencies, sometimes things can become muddy and unintelligible.
So it's in the clarity separation kind of realm.
It's up. It's not high, but it's high.
Okay.
Yeah. Balance.
Balance to me is easy. When you build a guitar, voice a guitar, whatever, and sometimes the way you play it, is to have a similar balance across all six strings.
Yes.
So, like. So obviously, if you were to measure those super accurately, there's different levels, but everything's clear.
Yes.
And there's balance across that. If like it's too much bass or the A string's jumping out, don't want that.
Yeah.
That's what it is to me.
Yeah, I think that's pretty universal.
Okay.
Balance in recording is the left-right spectrum. It's the same type of thing, you know. I think balance is also to do with in a mix. You know, I know I used to have some American.
And that's it. That's a mix.
Some of my American friends would call a sound check a balance. You know,
right?
Sort of, you know, getting the levels kind of balanced up. Yeah. So that's quite a
Okay.
Sparkle.
Sparkle. To me, if I say a guitar's got sparkle, it's that shimmering in the treble. It's some sort of movement, you know, it's like the real glisten in the high frequencies. It's not flat, there's something moving in there. That's what it is for me.
Yeah.
Hard to describe. That's a bit...
For me, it's kind of, it's the air kind of frequency. It's high, it's a shimmer, it's something which is, creates, I like that.
Jazz hands on the shimmer.
Sustain.
Easy. How long a note lasts?
Not to be confused with decay.
How long a note doesn't last? or how long it's... Are we doing sustain? Well, sustain is how long a note lasts. So if you measure that, and as it starts to disappear, it's decaying.
Yes, that's exactly the same for me. But decay is almost... We did a very interesting show a while back on 12 frets and 14 frets.
That was great. Yeah.
And we talked about this, and we talked about how the 12 had a kind of a bloom.
Yeah.
It's sort of it arrived and then
it decayed quickly.
But it was still there.
Yeah.
But
the 14th fret
sustained
longer and decayed slower.
Yeah.
We'll put that episode there. Sarah might pop it up there somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good episode. Yeah. Okay, here's two terms that are, you know, intrinsically kind of linked: fundamentals and overtones.
Fundamental is the note you were playing. If it's an E, that's it. It's the fundamental note wherever you are on the fretboard. It is the immediate sound. Can we all agree with that?
Yes.
Well, what that frequency of that note is, that's the fundamental note frequency. Overtone is kind of when that reproduces and changes. So it's like there's multiples of the fundamental. And that happens, the air and the sound waves in the guitar repeating. Is it repeating? Certainly, sometimes they just change. Sometimes they decay very similar, depending on how the guitar is voiced or what wood it's made from. It's when you hit a note or a chord and you get the fundamental, which is maybe then all of a sudden you get a and it can almost be like circular as well. That's what overtones are to me. Yeah. I'm sure there's a more scientific way to explain that.
I think when anything is
colour,
kind of...
it's colour for me as well.
Well,
texture.
It's the overtones are the extra bits. So the fundamental for me is, and again, someone will have to see whether I'm completely right on this. I think the fundamental would be somewhere in the lower mids, so 100 hertz to 400, 500, 600 hertz, somewhere around there. That would be the fundamental note. But then the overtones could be all the way at the very top of our human hearing. We're talking about when something is excited, you hear the extra harmonics, the extra notes.
The harmonics of the fundamental, yes.
Yeah. So that can go all the way up. And some guitars have an ability to display that beautifully. And it's down to all different aspects, isn't it?
Many things, the woods and the voicing and sound box construction, etc.
Couple left. When you hear, we always talk about things being woody, but of course everything's woody. So what do you mean specifically by that?
No, we haven't got muddy on here either.
Woody and muddy.
Woody and muddy. Woody sounds like, you know, more wood, and I guess it's middle. And, or say cedar, you may sound more woody, or, you know, the middle frequencies maybe of mahogany, where there's less sort of scoop in the frequency response. And That's what it means to me anyway.
Yeah. Like a solid guitar.
Just middle punch.
Where you can feel the construction, or you can feel the material rather.
And muddy, because we haven't got separation.
Oh, we haven't got separation.
The separation is super important. So separation,
even after all those strings have been plucked, you can still hear those individual strings.
yeah. So muddiness, it's like there's something in between the notes. It's not clear. Separation is when you can hear everything. So you can hear the gaps between. And even so even when you play them together, you can still hear the notes. That's what separation is for me.
Marvelous.
Is that for you as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, separation for me separation in a mix is where you can distinguish all of its constituent parts.
Yeah.
Because and muddy's the same thing.
Great way to say it.
Yeah.
Distinguish all its what?
Constituent parts. The thing about recorded music is, the thing about when I'm approaching a mix of a lot of instruments, all of the energy is in the mid frequencies. Trying to separate those bits out is an art in itself. It takes a long time to be able
and all
to
that sort of stuff in the mix. I can imagine.
So that's for me.
And the same in voicing, actually. I think when you talk to, or you hear wonderful master luthiers talk, who have got so much experience in voicing instruments, they're sort of doing that.
Yeah.
You know, for sure.
And I guess it's the choice in tone woods and in the size,
bracing,
and the shape,
mass,
the bracing.
You know, knowing what the air's going to do to when you're in the middle of the build. Clever stuff.
Fantastic.
Are we on the last one?
On the last one.
Oh, God.
Response.
Response for me, and this is probably different, is when I think about, you know, when we're developing and designing, and you're playing samples, response to me is it just has to be right there on my right hand. So whatever I'm doing with this, which is usually strumming or picking, it's just the instant, you know. And sometimes I pick up a guitar, and I know you can't measure that. It's like milliseconds or whatever, or milliseconds. Sometimes I just feel a little bit disconnected from an instrument. And to me, that's how the guitar is built. You should build guitars that you're very connected, and that is response for me. Probably different for you.
No, it's different. I mean, it's of course. I mean, I was obviously coming at this from a music production kind of language. But I think about attack and response. You know, I think about. I mean, we're talking about a compressor, for example.
Well, I think that's it. It's like you know, when you think what I'm talking about with the right hand thing, you think that's note is plucked or hit. It's going through here, going through there. It's exciting the top. It's bouncing from the back and the sides. It's coming back out.
Yeah.
And it's all timing, isn't it? It's like the guitar is built correctly. That response time is like immediate. But what's your attack? It's the same thing, right?
Well, attack and compression is. I mean, we've got a thing about compression, and we've got a episode about that. But for me, a compressor is basically turning down the volume, right? Essentially. So the attack is how quickly it does that. If you set that to a very, very fast attack, it's going to grab that note too fast. So you lose some of the initial transient. If you do a slower attack, it lets that transient through.
So with regard to acoustic guitar, context, what does response mean to you?
How quickly I hear that.
What you're doing.
What I'm doing coming back to me.
But it's about connection, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're feeling or hearing any, we use the word slowness, it's not, but I think maybe it is. But it's connection.
This is not a technical term. It's a kind of a feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's describing how you're feeling about your connection with the instrument. Yeah.
That's cool. Please let us know, well, for example, stuff we missed, and if you disagree with anything or have more to add on some of the things that these words mean to us. But obviously we could go on. We'll probably do another one of these. There's lots of different terms we can get into. And also we stayed away from like bits of the guitar because we did our anatomy of the acoustic guitar. So we stay away from what does bracing mean and all that sort of stuff. But terminology. And
Great stuff.
Let us know your thoughts. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. If you want to watch more videos like this one, click the video on the screen now.